Okay. Can you start by telling us the name of the poem?
Yeah, so my poem that I did for the project is Still I Rise by Maya Angelou.
And can you talk about the surface meaning of the poem?
Yeah, so when I went through the poem the first time, just getting a glimpse and reading it over without any context of who Maya Angelou was and looking into when it was written and all that stuff, just reading it over, you see that she's a really strong and passionate woman, and she has a lot of these prejudices and people that look to have it out for her and limit what she can do in the world. And the title just keeps recurring, Still I Rise. Like, that's how she ends most of the stanzas, a couple of stanzas, Still I Rise, and kind of lists all the things that may limit her in the life, and all these, like, whether it's from her past or in the present, like, people think that she's wrong for her views, but again, I didn't know any of that before. So just the surface meaning, you see a really strong woman who doesn't let anything limit her or phase her.
And so you touched on it a little bit, but can you talk about the deeper meaning of the poem?
Yeah, so to find the deeper meaning, I kind of just looked at the context associated with the poem, like when was it written, what message at the time when it was written, because, and like, again, 40 years later, you don't always get the context. So I tried to look at why she was writing it at that exact point in time, and I found that it was published in the mid to late 70s. So coming off the civil rights movement for African Americans, which Maya Angelou was really, really passionate about in the late 60s, the poem kind of talks about how, like, they still, like, as African Americans, they still probably weren't getting their proper respect in the country, whether it was from people who still didn't believe in equal rights or whatever. I mean, there's still people to this day, so you have to believe there are people trying to put her and everyone else who was campaigning for equal rights down 10 years later, only after the fact. So just taking all that context into account, especially since she was really passionate about the civil rights movement. So just all the things reading back, like when she says, "You may shoot me with your words," and all that stuff, I didn't really think about it as it was literal, but there were African Americans literally getting shot at, and that's just something that kind of whizzed by me on my initial reading. But when I applied it to the deeper meaning, you kind of see that it's not just like this woman trying to rise against the adversity, but it's deeper. She's talking about her entire race and the group she represents as African American women who are still to this day fighting for equal rights, and she was fighting that good fight all the way back in the 70s. So it was really interesting and cool to read about the context and everything that went into it, and it also made the poem a lot more meaningful to me.